Hey you guys, so I thought I'd come to you today and talk to you a little bit more about my NCLEX experience. So I took my NCLEX for the first time about a little less than a week ago, and I passed. And so I'm going to share a little bit about what helped me, what I used to study, and just like my overall NCLEX experience. And I have a little balloon, my graduation balloon in the background, as well as this, and just for some, some happy vibes. Set the mood. So I'm just gonna put that in the corner and hold my balloon. But yeah, and if you see me looking down at my phone, it's because I just have some notes here of like what I want to say. So yeah, I passed the NCLEX in 75 questions. And I guess first I'm going to talk a little bit about what the NCLEX is. So essentially, the NCLEX is an exam that all new grad nurses and I think like LPNs have to take, and you have to pass it in order to get your license to practice. So I graduated in May, like last week of May 25th or something, and I ended up taking the NCLEX in July on July 15th of 2021. But what the NCLEX is, so it's a computer adaptive test, meaning that it's a learning test, so that it kind of learns about you as you take it. Everybody starts off kind of like at an equalized, like at a 0. And essentially, the more questions you get right, the harder the exam gets. So as you get questions wrong, the exam will get easier, and your goal is to overall stay above the 0 mark. And so, like, let's say you take you're here when you start off, you get a question right, you would then move on to like a next level hard question. You take another question, you get it right, you move up a level again. And then let's say you're like 3 questions in, you get the 3rd question wrong, you drop down. And it kind of like gauges where you're at until you get into a stable kind of like zigzag pattern. And the goal is by the end, whether that's 75 questions or till you get to the end, 145 questions, the computer wants to get like a kind of sense of where you're at and in terms of your knowledge. And the overall goal of the NCLEX obviously is to make sure that you can safely practice and like not harm patients. So it's to protect the patients. But yeah, okay, so what I used to study. So again, I took my NCLEX. I passed it in 75 questions. I studied for about a month, and I used Kaplan, Uworld, and Mark Kilmick. I always butcher his name, but Mark K. So I used him. I started off using Kaplan. Oh, and I also used the Kaplan like review success book. So my nursing program like gave us Kaplan access. It was included like in our tuition. So I had that by default. And then I heard a lot of people like in my cohort and just like talking to other people who said Uworld worked for them. And I feel like everybody has a different way of studying. So I ended up buying Uworld, but honestly, I found personally Uworld like too easy because I'd be getting like 90s on Uworld, and then I'd take Kaplan and I'd be getting like 60s, and I'm like, okay. But I will say, after getting like straight 60s for a while, or like to end my day after using Kaplan, I'd then take a Uworld exam to like boost my confidence and not feel like crap. I felt like the exam itself looked exactly like how Uworld is set up, like same format and everything, but I felt like the level of difficulty for questions mirrored more that of Kaplan in the sense that they were just more vague. So I found Kaplan more helpful. Slight intermission because my mom decided to come downstairs. But yeah, so again, like I said, I found Kaplan to be like same level difficulty, so I felt like I was learning the most from Kaplan. And in my opinion, I just felt Uworld is great for like when you're just learning the knowledge, but I think that I felt like the questions kind of gave too many hints to guide me to the right answer, and that's why I found it easier as compared to like Kaplan, which was much more vague and much more, I feel like, representative of what the questions were actually like. Before I even like, so I guess I had initially started doing Kaplan, and then I like was tanking those exams like I was doing. so bad. But then I ended up using the review book and going back. I also was using the HESI book, but I felt like if I'm gonna do like one review thing, like I might as well stick with like one book. So I stopped using the HESI and just like, because then it's like all their values are weird and like they differ by like 0.1, and I'm just like, my brain can't like reabsorb that. So I ended up primarily just using the Kaplan like success book, and I'll like insert the screenshot of the actual book I used. I used the ebook because it just like came with my package. And I like reviewed that for a little bit. So like I'd have like notes, like documents of each system. So I'd have like cardiac, respiratory, peds, maternity, farm. And I did that like for a week or two, like heavily. And then I went into the practice questions because I felt like, yes, I can't recite everything from the top of my head, but there's no way I'm memorizing all that in such a short amount of time. That's like very unrealistic. I'd like review the notes, I'd skim over them every now and then, like maybe once a week, and just primarily focus on practice questions. Like practice questions are your key to success because it kind of helps you like build your confidence, but also understand how to like work through your options and just work through the processing aspect of it. Because at the end of the day, we all know the stuff, like we all graduated school, like we know it. It's more so like applying it in difficult situations and prioritization like heavily. I will say of the Mark K lectures, I ended up listening to all of them because I had the time to, but my favorite one for me, it was like lecture 12 in like a Google file I had. But prioritization, his prioritization lecture, beautiful. It just like really simplified everything, and I feel like you don't learn a lot about that, or at least I didn't as heavily in nursing school, so I really appreciated that. But let's see what's next. Okay, so my experience. So again, I took the exam at 8 a.m. and I will say, like the night before, like no sleep. I didn't get no sleep because of y'all. Y'all not gonna get no sleep because of me. And normally I'm not like a nervous test taker, but I got like no sleep before this exam. Like I got like 3 hours of sleep maybe, and that's it. I had it out at 8 a.m. and I ended up like waking up at like 6 a.m. or like 5:30, around that, between 5:30 and 6, and I was just like laying in bed because the exam place that I went to was like 15 minutes from my house. And so my plan was to leave by 7 because it says like it's recommended you get there 30 minutes in advance. Now your girl left at like 6:55 because I was just too anxious, and I was like, let's just go. Like let's get there. And so I like woke up, did my thing, said my prayers. I didn't even review because from nursing school I've just learned that like I'm the person that if I review like the day of, like right before an exam, it'll kind of like mess things up in my head and jumble them up. I just like did my prayer. I prayed at home, prayed when I went in the car, but when I was at the car, and then went in. And I know like it said it recommended you check in like 30 minutes before, so my plan was to sit in the car until like 7:30, but your girl was still too anxious. So I went in at 7:15 and like checked in, and literally when they were doing the palm scan thing, like when I tell you she had to do each hand like 4 times because my hands were shaking, it's okay to be nervous, and it's understandable if you guys like go through that. You just gotta like get to your seat and like
and release all of those sounds that are trapped in your mind.
Relax and take a deep breath. I felt like I was like because obviously like when you go to the testing centers, not everyone's taking the same exam. I remember in the waiting room there were like 6 other people with me. They were all freaking surgeons taking like this surgeon exam and talking about it. I was like, okay. I guess I felt like lonely because I was like, no one here's taking the NCLEX. I got in there, took the exam, did the thing. I only had multiple choice and select all that applies. I never had any of the other ones. Like I didn't have like the ordering ones. I never had like math questions, nothing, just multiple choice and select all that applies. And like when I tell you, I feel like, I don't know, because like obviously you turn in your phone, you don't know what time you start the exam, but I feel like I started before 8 a.m. but maybe it was 8 a.m. and I was just really nervous. I don't know, but all I know is after I took the exam, by the time I sat in my car and like looked at my phone, it was like 9:10, and I was like, oh my god. because I feel like when I walked out, the lady was kind of like, you done? And yeah. And so let me just say, after the exam though, guys, post-test anxiety is real. I'm part of like a couple like nursing student Facebook groups, and I was just like scrolling through everything, and like obviously everyone wants to do the Pearson VUE trick, and of course I did it and it worked for me. But I guess my fear was like, what if it works, or what if it worked but it wasn't true, because I just felt like I had 75 questions. It was like barely an hour. Oh, and to backtrack, another thing, those like tester questions or whatever that they let you do at the end, I did those. I didn't know you can skip those. I wasted my time doing those. But I guess in the back of my mind, I was also like, can this help me redeem myself? Because I thought I like bombed it. But yeah, so you can't skip those. But whatever, I digress. What was I saying? After the exam, you're gonna feel, or maybe you'll feel great, but I know from like my experience and like I guess friends and like hearing of other people and like in the Facebook group I'm in, like you are going to feel terrible. Like I cried in my car literally after I took it. It's like you're on edge for like 2 days until you get your quick results. And let me just say, I totally recommend paying for the quick results, because it's just nice and like your peace of mind and stuff. It's just like a weight has been released off your shoulders. So definitely, I think it's like $8. Like just do it. For the first day after I took it, like the first 24 hours, I'd keep checking the Pearson VUE trick to see if it like changed it all, and it didn't. Like it still worked for me. And there's a YouTube video I actually followed, I'll link it below, to like help me like figure that out. The last day before, I was like, I'm not gonna do this trick anymore, like I'm just gonna pray. Your girl had gospel music on repeat. I was just like having like faith that everything went out and like worked okay. And then I checked and I got my results 9 a.m. on Thursday, or a Saturday, because I took it on a Thursday, and that was a fun time. But let's see, my thoughts overall. Honestly, like even though I felt like it was hard in the moment, looking back, it wasn't that bad. I think for me anyways, it was just like I second guessed myself a lot, which has always been like my main issue anyways. Like even doing practice questions, like I'd always second guess myself. So I don't do that. If that's your problem.
Hold on, do it. Yeah. Oh my God.
It wasn't that bad. Like they just want to know that you can be safe, like bare minimum safe, if anything. Like you don't have to know every disease in the book. Like you're being anxious or getting anxious, just like take a breather. But yeah, it wasn't that bad. It's doable. And I always say, like, you made it through nursing school. So you can do this. And again, like I took a month to study, but everybody's different. I felt like I could have taken it earlier. It just took forever to get my ATT, but that's a story for another day. It's a story for another day. Take a break if you need it. I think we have 3 hours to take the exam, I think. Don't quote me on that. But like, you'll have enough time. If you need to take a break, take a break. Take a breather, step away. Or even for me, like I closed my eyes and I just like took some deep breaths, said a little prayer in my head, and I got back to it. Do whatever you need to do. But yeah, that was my NCLEX experience, and a little sharing more about what I thought of it, how I studied, and I passed. And for everyone still going out there to take it, whether it's your first, second, third time, whatever, you got this. Just study, you know yourself best, and yeah, catch you guys in another video. Peace.
Playing games.